Well, the book of Exodus tells the story of the Hebrews' flight from Egypt, how God delivered them from Pharaoh's army at the Red Sea crossing and led them to Mount Sinai, where he gave Moses the 10 Commandments.
In the barren heart of northwest Saudi Arabia, a land where the air itself seems to shimmer with heat, a team of researchers made a discovery that may rewrite one of the oldest stories ever told. What began as a simple archaeological survey, mapping ancient caravan routes lost to time, soon turned into something far more mysterious. As drones flew over a jagged range of rose-colored granite peaks, one mountain caught their attention. Its summit was blackened, as though fire had once swept across it, yet no volcanoes exist for hundreds of miles. When the team studied the data more closely, they realized that the peak was giving off residual heat long after the desert cooled. AI imaging confirmed what human eyes could not. Beneath the surface of this dark crown, there were patterns, structures, and traces of activity that defied every geological explanation. The evidence pointed to an event so intense it scorched the stone itself. But the deeper the scientists looked, the closer they came to a story that echoed through the book of Exodus, the mountain where fire met God and the laws of heaven were carved into stone. As modern technology unearths what ancient texts described, one question remains. Is this truly Mount Sinai, the mountain of Moses? Or have we uncovered something even older, something that challenges history itself? Stay until the end. You won't believe what AI uncovered beneath the desert sands. Like, share, and subscribe for more mysteries the modern world still can't explain. The desert of northwest Saudi Arabia stretches endlessly beneath a pale sky, where the air ripples with heat and silence holds the weight of centuries. Few places on earth feel as untouched by time as these vast lands. Yet, hidden beneath their stillness lies one of humanity's oldest questions. Where did the moment between man and the divine truly occur? For thousands of years, pilgrims, prophets, and scholars have searched for Mount Sinai, the mountain said to have burned with the presence of God. According to Scripture, it was here that Moses received the commandments, a mountaintop wrapped in fire and thunder, where a people fleeing Egypt met their destiny. For centuries, the traditional site has been placed in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, its jagged peaks rising above the monastery of St. Catherine. But in recent decades, new evidence has drawn attention eastward to the highlands of Arabia, to a place known as Jabal al-Lawz, a name that translates to Mountain of Almonds. Some ancient maps, early explorers' journals, and even biblical references in the letters of Paul describe Mount Sinai as being in Arabia. Could it be that the real mountain of fire was here all along? In early 2025, an international team of archaeologists, AI engineers, and environmental scientists set out to test this question. Under the guidance of Saudi Arabia's Heritage Commission, their mission was simple: to map forgotten caravan trails that once connected the Red Sea coast to the deep interior. But when their drones and satellites began transmitting data, something unexpected appeared on the monitors. Deep beneath the rocky slopes of Jabal al-Lawz, the artificial intelligence detected patterns no one could easily explain. Using full-spectrum imaging, the AI highlighted faint lines beneath the surface, geometric shapes arranged with precision, like the blueprint of something buried. There were strange geothermal readings too, warm zones hidden beneath layers of ancient granite. Though the region has no known volcanic activity, the data algorithms flagged the site as unclassified irregular, a designation reserved for anomalies that defy ordinary geological categories. The archaeologists, cautious but intrigued, reviewed the scan again. It was not just a shadow or artifact of software. The formations had depth and direction, as if carved or molded by forces far beyond natural erosion. The AI marked them as structural cavities, deep and symmetrical, suggesting that something artificial might be concealed within the mountain's core. At first, the team believed it might be an ancient mine or a fault chamber filled with metallic ore, but the temperature readings made little sense. The heat was concentrated at the summit, where the rocks are blackened, a feature that locals have long described as burned by heaven. Bedouin herders in nearby valleys have told stories for generations about this mountain, that it glows faintly under certain conditions, that it is forbidden to climb too high. Until now, such tales were dismissed as folklore. When the AI cross-referenced the data with historical topographic maps and early expedition notes, it uncovered something even stranger. Faint traces of rectangular boundaries near the base aligned to true east and west. To the archaeologists, it resembled the footprint of an ancient camp or enclosure. The deeper the algorithm searched, the more the landscape began to reveal hidden layers of its past, fragments of old paths, buried walls, and long dry riverbeds etched beneath the sand. What began as a simple digital survey soon became a mystery that transcended science. The team realized they might have found the first measurable evidence connecting this mountain to a story written over 3,000 years ago. The data didn't just describe geology, it hinted at history, faith, and something else entirely, something that seemed to pulse beneath the mountain's silent peak. For the scientists, the discovery was as humbling as it was thrilling. AI had uncovered what human eyes had missed for generations, a mountain that might hold the memory of one of humanity's oldest encounters with the divine. What it found next would leave even the most skeptical among them questioning where history ends and legend begins. Long before satellites and AI cast their digital gaze upon the Arabian desert, Mount Sinai was already etched into humanity's deepest memory, a place where heaven touched the earth in flame. For millennia, it has been spoken of with reverence and fear, a mountain that burns yet is not consumed, where divine law was said to have descended among thunder, cloud, and fire. Whether one opens the Torah, the Bible, or the Quran, Sinai stands as a symbol of revelation, a summit where a mortal encountered the voice of the Eternal. According to the book of Exodus, the mountain shook as Moses climbed its steep face, cloaked in storm and smoke. Deuteronomy describes lightning flashing like veins of fire across the sky, and a trumpet's sound growing louder until the people trembled. The Quran, too, speaks of Tur-Sanah, the Mount of Sinai, as a sacred ground where God called to Moses. Across all three traditions, it is not merely a place on a map, but a moment in time when the invisible made itself known. Yet beneath the grandeur of Scripture lies a puzzle that has haunted historians and archaeologists alike. Where exactly did this encounter happen? For centuries, Christian tradition identified the Sinai Peninsula as the most likely setting. Pilgrims have long journeyed to the granite heights near St. Catherine's Monastery, where monks have guarded what they believe to be the true Mount Sinai. But as modern archaeology and historical linguistics have advanced, the debate has deepened. Ancient texts, particularly the writings of Paul the Apostle, describe the mountain as being in Arabia, suggesting that the traditional location might not tell the full story. Recent excavations across the Arabian Northwest have revealed surprising traces of ancient life. Carved inscriptions in Proto-Sinaitic and Thamudic scripts dot the cliffs, some invoking names and prayers reminiscent of the Exodus narrative. Archaeologists have followed faint caravan trails, once used by Midianite traders, leading to mountain passes that match the descriptions of Sinai's surrounding wilderness. Nearby, stone circles, altars, and rock shelters hint at a landscape once filled with travelers, shepherds, and worshippers. To the untrained eye, these are only relics of desert wanderers. But to those studying the migration patterns of the late Bronze Age, they form a silent map of a people on the move. The Red Sea's shallow northern gulf, known today as the Gulf of Aqaba, may once have provided a crossing route from Egypt's wilderness into Arabia. Satellite imagery now reveals what ancient chroniclers described as a path through the waters, a geological formation beneath the Gulf floor that in theory could have been passable under extreme tidal conditions. Local Bedouin tribes who inhabit the valleys around Jabal Alaz still tell stories passed down through generations. They speak of a mountain of fire, a place where lightning once descended and left the stones scorched black. They point to the summit, where the rocks are darkened as though by intense heat, though no volcanic source exists for hundreds of miles. Some describe the base of the mountain as forbidden, watched over by unseen guardians. Others recall strange lights that appear at night, flickering like embers in the windless dark. Archaeologists who have studied these oral traditions note how remarkably consistent they are with ancient accounts of Sinai's appearance. The mountain, whether in Egypt or Arabia, is always described as trembling, blazing, and wrapped in smoke. Could it be that the stories, carried on the breath of desert families for centuries, preserve fragments of a real event, one that science is only now beginning to rediscover? As researchers retrace these routes and compare inscriptions, they begin to see a convergence between myth and geography. The mountain of fire, the wilderness of wandering, the law delivered in thunder, all find echoes in the silent stone valleys of Arabia. Whether through scripture, tradition, or the faint marks left by human hands, Mount Sinai endures as more than a legend. It remains a question carved into the earth itself, waiting for the day when technology might finally reveal what lies beneath its sacred surface. When the first ground teams arrived at Jabal al-Lawz, their boots sank into gravel untouched by centuries of wind. The desert, silent and unyielding, seemed to guard its secrets beneath a crust of heat and stone. But what they began to uncover would stir one of the most heated debates in modern archaeology, a debate balancing on the edge of science and faith. Using data from the AI satellite scans, the archaeologists marked out the most promising sites along the mountain's northern base. There, amidst a landscape of fractured basalt and sand, they found something that made even the most seasoned among them pause. Stones at the summit blackened as if by fire, yet no trace of volcanic rock existed in the area, and thermal imaging showed residual heat patterns locked within the upper layers, suggesting exposure to extreme temperature at some distant point in time. It was as though the mountaintop itself had once burned. A few kilometers away, a split boulder towered over the valley floor, cracked cleanly down the center. Its interior walls bore the unmistakable signature of water erosion. Smooth channels carved by flowing streams, yet the surrounding terrain had been arid for thousands of years. To the archaeologists, it was a geological puzzle. To the more spiritually minded among them, it recalled a passage from Exodus, the moment when Moses struck the rock and water poured forth for his people. As excavations deepened, the team uncovered clusters of petroglyphs scattered across the cliffs. Etched into the red stone were the shapes of bulls, processions of figures, and what appeared to be altars or ceremonial circles. Some of the engravings showed horns lifted high, others human forms in lines of ritual movement. Carbon analysis of nearby charcoal fragments dated them to between 1200 and 600 BCE, roughly the same period traditionally associated with the Exodus and the early Iron Age. To the scientific community, these findings represented a fascinating look into the nomadic cultures that once traversed Arabia's highlands. But for those familiar with the ancient texts, the imagery struck a deeper chord. the depictions of bulls recalled the biblical episode of the golden calf, a moment when the Israelites, waiting for Moses to descend from the mountain, fashioned an idol in his absence. Could this be coincidence? Or were these carvings remnants of the very people described in Scripture? Not everyone agreed. Skeptics within the field proposed alternative explanations, that the altars were remnants of Midianite tribal worship and that the petroglyphs symbolized cattle used for trade, not devotion. Yet others pointed to the site's precise geographic fit, its proximity to ancient travel corridors, its burnt summit, its nearby water source, as evidence too exact to ignore. The arguments grew intense, spilling beyond academic circles into public discourse and online speculation. As word of the discovery spread, the Saudi Heritage Commission quietly restricted access to the area. Officially, the reason was to protect the site from damage and looting. Unofficially, rumors swirled. Claims that certain findings had been removed from reports, that satellite images had been reclassified, that something larger lay buried deeper within the mountain's foundation. Amateur researchers and journalists began calling it the Forbidden Mountain, echoing the old Bedouin legends that it was not to be disturbed. For the archaeologists on site, the mood was both exhilarating and uneasy. They were walking through history's thin veil, a place where myth could almost be measured. The mountain was yielding evidence of human presence, ritual behavior, and inexplicable geological phenomena, all converging in one remote valley. Whether it was truly Sinai or not, they could feel the weight of the question pressing upon every discovery. Were they uncovering the story of an ancient people, or stepping into the echo of a sacred moment preserved in stone? Each fragment they unearthed, every tool, inscription, and charred rock, added another layer to a mystery that refused to fit neatly into science or scripture. Mount Sinai, the mountain of fire and law, was no longer just a legend told in faith. It was becoming an archaeological reality, one that neither believers nor skeptics could fully explain. By the time the fieldwork at Jabal al-Lawz reached its second phase, curiosity had given way to unease. The archaeological discoveries alone were astonishing: blackened stones, ancient carvings, and geological anomalies. But it was what lay beneath the mountain that would unsettle even the most rational minds. To see what the human eye could not, the research team turned to a new instrument, a prototype system known as quantum resolution ground imaging, powered by AI. Unlike traditional radar or LiDAR, it could analyze quantum-level feedback from particles that had traveled deep through solid rock, rendering a three-dimensional map of what lay hidden below. The system was designed for mineral exploration and planetary research, not for probing ancient holy sites, but with the permission of Saudi authorities and under strict confidentiality, the scan commenced. Over the course of 72 hours, the AI collected billions of data points from the mountain's summit to its base, processing them through neural simulations trained to detect non-random geometric structures. What emerged on the monitors stunned the entire lab. Beneath the mountain's charred crown, the very place Bedouin stories said the fire once fell, the AI revealed a network of hollow cavities. Some were shallow depressions. Others formed symmetrical tunnels stretching laterally across several hundred meters. The mapping system rendered them in pale blue outlines, halls, chambers, and interlocking corridors. Their shapes were angular, far too regular to have been produced by simple fissures or lava tubes. Yet there was no sign of volcanic activity in the region, not in any known geological record. Then came the heat readings. Even after millennia, the sensors detected residual thermal signatures, faint but undeniable, deep within the bedrock. These readings suggested that something had once reached temperatures higher than any natural fire could achieve in such confined spaces. The data team initially flagged it as an error. Recalibration returned the same results. The AI had detected zones of extreme heat concentration embedded like scars within the mountain's core. As the scans deepened, something stranger began to occur. The instruments, tuned to measure quantum resonance, picked up a faint, rhythmic pulse. It was not seismic. It was not electrical noise from equipment. It was a repeating signal, a magnetic echo pulsing every 11 minutes from beneath the upper chamber region. Its frequency matched no known natural phenomenon. When the data was fed through the AI's classification model, the system labeled it non-geological source detected. For a moment, the control room fell silent. No one spoke, only the soft hum of machines filled the air. They replayed the readings again and again, searching for interference. A transmission glitch, a power fluctuation, anything to explain the pulse. But it persisted, steady and unwavering, as if something deep within the mountain was resonating in rhythm with time itself. Within days, word reached the overseeing committee. Access to the full resolution data was immediately restricted. The files were encrypted, and only summaries were released for publication. The official explanation cited subsurface anomalies of indeterminate origin, but researchers within the project whispered otherwise. Some claimed that the magnetic echoes carried patterned intervals, almost like encoded information. Others, more cautious, believed it to be the remnant of a long-cooled natural reaction, though none could explain the geometry of the structures that surrounded it. As the mountain's digital reconstruction spread among a small circle of scientists, fear began to replace wonder. If these chambers were indeed artificial, who carved them, and for what purpose? Could this be an ancient sanctuary, sealed by fire, or something entirely beyond human understanding? Unofficially, several members of the AI team reported subtle irregularities during the analysis, system flickers, phantom code strings appearing in their data interface, as though the machine itself were reacting to what it had found. "It's almost like it's aware of something down there," one technician remarked off record. Soon after, the site was declared a protected cultural zone, off-limits to all independent researchers. Publicly, authorities spoke of preservation. Privately, those who had seen the full scan data were left with questions they dared not ask. For all their technology and algorithms, they could not explain what the AI had uncovered beneath Mount Sinai, a silence pulsing from the heart of the mountain, older than any civilization and perhaps never meant to be disturbed. At dawn, when the wind moves through the valleys of Jabal al-Lawz, the mountain hums faintly. A low vibration felt more than heard. For most, it is only the whisper of the desert wind, but for the small team of scientists granted final access, it is the echo of something far older. After months of classified study, a joint Saudi-European research group was permitted to send microprobes into one of the fissures identified by the AI scans. What they found there would bring the line between faith and science to its thinnest edge. The probes descended carefully through a crack, no wider than a human arm, sliding meters below the blackened summit. Cameras transmitted grainy footage at first, rough stone, layers of compacted ash, until the view suddenly widened. Within the fissure's depths lay a narrow chamber, its walls fused smooth, shining as though glass. The interior rock appeared vitrified, melted and re-solidified in an instant, as if struck by an energy no known natural process could produce. It was not the work of lava or lightning. It was too clean, too even. The instruments measured a composition unlike anything cataloged in local geology. Silica fused with trace metallic compounds, crystalline in structure yet formed deep within granite. When the light from the probe's lens swept across the interior surface, faint shapes emerged, marks carved or seared into the vitrified wall. They were neither random cracks nor mineral veins. Under enhancement, the lines formed characters, angular, deliberate, and hauntingly familiar. Linguists who reviewed the footage recognized fragments resembling Proto-Hebrew inscriptions, an early script that predates the written Torah itself. The letters were faint, half obliterated, as if burned into stone and later sealed by molten glass. Spectral readings detected a residue coating portions of the chamber, a thin crystalline film consistent with high-voltage electrical discharge, but of an intensity no lightning strike could replicate. The team's instruments recorded a residual electromagnetic field lingering inside the cavity, pulsing softly every few seconds, like a faint heartbeat beneath the stone. For the physicists, it was a puzzle. For the archaeologists, it was a revelation. The data, when compared with ancient texts, matched one description almost exactly. The mountain trembled greatly, and the Lord descended upon it in fire. The findings were relayed to the Oversight Committee for verification. Within days, the recordings were sealed under restricted classification. The official report, released months later, dismissed the data as inconclusive thermal anomalies and mineral vitrification resulting from ancient lightning events. But those who had seen the full footage whispered otherwise. One geologist described the interior as impossible, as if the rock itself remembers being alive. Another, a linguist, admitted privately that the inscriptions were too precise to dismiss as natural fracture patterns. Independent analysis of the probe's final data stream revealed something strange, a fluctuation in the magnetic field that synchronized with the rhythmic pulse first detected in the earlier AI scans. It was as though the mountain's inner chamber was still resonating with some unseen force, one that had endured across ages. Some theorized a natural phenomenon, others a relic of an ancient technological process lost to time. Yet among the team, there were those who quietly believed they had found evidence of the event described in Scripture. The meeting of man and the divine, preserved not on parchment, but within the stone itself. Footage that leaked unofficially showed only a few seconds. A probe camera turning slowly through a gleaming corridor of blackened glass, the letters faint but unmistakable, glowing under infrared light. The image cut to static before the probe's signal vanished. No one has seen it since. The mountain remains sealed, guarded, its coordinates removed from public mapping systems. Officially, the research continues. Unofficially, the silence around Jabal Allah's has deepened. Yet for those who once stood there, the feeling is unforgettable, that in the heart of that ancient fire, something had been imprinted long ago. Perhaps, as one researcher wrote in a private note, the laws once written in flame are still imprinted here, waiting, patient as stone, for humanity to remember.